Everybody, welcome back to another episode of RevTalks. Today, we're joined with Mike in the software development space. How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I know you're building a pretty cool company in the actual space. Can you give us the name of the company and what you guys are specifically specializing in the development space?
Yeah. So we are Eligio.ai. We have rebranded in the last couple of months due to the fact that, the shift in the markets, the shift in the client need. There's a huge need in the AI space. And AI is such a loaded word. And I'm sure we'll get into this today more, but one of the things we've realized as an organization is we really do need to lean more into how do we enable what the client already knows to ensure they can leverage the most value out of AI. That's the thing that I think we get lost in is you can't just throw a platform at a problem. You got to, and this has always been the problem with SaaS, with even before that, with homegrown solutions. It's not about the technology that solves the problems, it's about the people behind it. So we have a kind of a dual effort going on, which is ensuring that when we do adapt what we do to the people problems, we're focusing on the human first. We're trusting the process. That's a key, I guess you could say, statement that we always say during all of our calls. And then we're ensuring that we enable something that can really measure the outcomes. And that's where Flowcore comes in. And we'll get more into that here in a second. But Eligio.ai is a full service, full cycle style of, I guess you could say, guidance. And the guidance as a service really is making sure that what we adapt to the human need really does answer the call to the outcomes we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And so would you say that kind of the software development space has shifted from more of companies aren't needing software, or that maybe that the sophistication of it or the barrier of entry has gotten different? Because obviously we talked briefly before the actual podcast, a lot of lower ticket sort of platforms are able to go in there and sort of offer a solution. But, as I'm sure you're aware, mid-market is kind of a little bit more complicated with integration. There's a lot more things that have to go into. They can't really use a Lovable or something like that to actually develop the solution. What's that kind of like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the nose there. I don't think I could have said it much better myself. One thing I would like to add, though, is the fact that, yes, there is still that lower market tier that really is looking for that solution that's a one-stop shop, right? And those people can utilize that pretty effectively and get what they need as value for their company. But the challenge right now, even with them, is how do you ensure that when you enable something as intelligent as artificial intelligence and augment the actual process, are you really reimagining the business, or are you just sticking a tool in there to hopefully supplement what you think you're missing? And I think that's where we get lost with, clients thinking they need an agent. And as you've heard me talk about before, it's more of a workflow than it is an agent. And that's again, we're all learning as we go here. It's a brand new, world that we live in at this moment in time.
Absolutely. And in terms of acquiring customers in kind of a different way, are you guys seeing that more customers are approaching you guys with an integration kind of need or help? Or do you see it more of development of software still kind of like how it used to be? Are you seeing more of a shift? What does that kind of look like?
As of right now, it's an interesting trend at the moment because we are getting out of the bubble of AI at the moment. We're getting more into the clients are coming in more intelligent, right? We always knew customers and consumers come in with a lot more knowledge these days. Well, with the enablement of AI, just the basic chat that you can start utilizing, they're coming in with a lot of needs and wants. They just don't know how to organize them. So what I would say to that is it's a lot more intelligent. I mean, the conversations are a lot more advanced. They're coming in with pre-built, experimental agents that they think they need. And what we're doing is we're basically needing to dig into that. And we actually have agents that can dig into their agents and understand the structure, understand the models they're using, trying to get a better feel for what are they actually doing. But alongside, how are they using it in one-offs that could be more value if we were to think about it more systematically? So that is the biggest shift right now, is it's not necessarily, hey, here's all the features that you can get and they might solve your problem. It's, hey, what outcomes are we trying to achieve? What are the problems we're trying to solve? Let's start there and then enable you in the right fit instead of trying to push, a bunch of different features down your users' throats. And then all of a sudden they can't even consume what's out there, right? It's already overwhelming. Let's try to simplify it the best we can.
Absolutely. And historically, have you guys gotten the majority of your customers through word of mouth?
No, actually, we do have a channel that we are part of. So we are partners with a SaaS company that's pretty large across the world. So we utilize that on top of, we have been kind of outreach, obviously in our own parameters, specifically around just like the testing the waters around this new AI push. Now, obviously, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing similar things as us. And I'm not saying we're reinventing the wheel by any means, Well, with our core methodology and with how we actually leverage what is called Flowcore is kind of like our measurement system internal and will be external with the platform that we're developing for clients as well to allow ourselves to really define those outcomes with real data, with real backed data. And what I mean by that is industry accepted, industry averages, things of that nature, and then measuring it towards it. So there's a lot of companies that have this. I'm not saying this is like groundbreaking by any means. One of the key things that I would say would be clients are really looking for a way to show their executive suite we are accomplishing what we set out to do. And I think that's one of the biggest things that everybody struggles with like, feature specific or a software that does a small portion of the bigger process. They don't know how to show it's actually creating the value. And that's where Flowcore comes in with, and this is our homegrown solution that is a train of agents that literally measure 4 pillars with 9 specific entities to allow ourselves to actually see the value and see the progression, not only on what we're doing, but also on what the client's doing as well.
Okay, nice. So you guys have your own kind of integrated solution that can be deployed and it actually audits the customer and things like that.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
Cool. And are you seeing more of an intake with larger size projects nowadays, or are you still kind of seeing like the same shift? I mean, what are customers asking more for nowadays?
That's a great question. And I'm not going to say I know the answer to that yet. I think we're all trying to figure out what is that level of entry point they want to take, as well as the risks they want to take. Because again, they're taking on risks themselves when they sign up with somebody that is a consultant outside of their company. They're trying to feel you out. We're trying to feel them out. What I would say, though, is the entry points have been really interesting, specifically around we utilize what's called a process audit architecture, allowing ourselves to really get into our hands dirty around what are the processes we're trying to evolve? What are we trying to reimagine? And I want to keep phrasing that way because one of the things that clients tend to get stuck on right now is how do we make our business more intelligent, right? That question is so loaded and there's so many pieces to that sometimes we actually get stuck on, well, hold on a second. You guys know a lot about your process. A lot of this hasn't been enabled effectively. Let's talk about that first. Let's see where that takes us. The other point is we've noticed that it's not about the one-offs anymore. And that's something that we as a company, we had an evolution in our story that we realized that the one-off relationships really they're not valued by any party by that matter. And the journey of the client is really important. So we're actually offering more long-term engagements. And the reason being is the evolution of AI is fast, right? It continually changes daily. You have to stay on top of it. There really isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all your problems in the first effort anyway. You have to continually evolve. And that's what we've been doing internally. So our core methodology really allows us to guide the client through the journey, but then it's a complete cycle. It goes back around and we start consulting on the next level of the roadmap as we see it. So to kind of close that out, what I would say is clients aren't looking for heavier engagements necessarily. They're looking for the pace that they can keep up with based upon where they're at in their journey.
Absolutely. And right now, the best customers that you guys currently have, I know you mentioned kind of briefly some of the goals that you have are starting off in the earlier journey, then taking them through, obviously, to where they want to be. Are you seeing that larger size businesses typically off the bat are better for you guys, or maybe smaller size businesses that then adapt and grow with you are typically kind of the best customers? What does it kind of look like for your specific development company?
Yeah, it all depends on the fit. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if the size is necessarily going to be the determining factor of a fit with a client. There could be a small business that just wants to grow rapidly. That's a great fit for our model. It could be that it's a mid-size that is going to be acquired, or they are going to acquire and turn into an enterprise. That's a good fit too. What I would say, though, it's more along the lines of what we're starting to see, which is clients tend to think they're ready for this, and then they realize the level of commitment that it takes to really make this effective and really stick. And that's where we start really thinking about, yes, the larger companies have a lot more resources to throw at it. So I would say it's a little easier to position it. However, that means that there's multi-departmental. So it's another level of complexity. With the midsize, it's usually a single department. It's a single initiative that then turns into multiple initiatives. And that's good too. One of the things that we have implemented and we are really moving forward with is a readiness survey. And it's not an actual survey. That's the cool thing. It's a conversation. So our agent Flowcore actually measures their readiness based upon what they tell us. And it gives us the next steps and the coaching abilities to be able to get the client to the next level. One of the things that it's really helped us with is if we foresee something going on where, our gut's telling us, and that gut feeling, you're in the meeting, something's off or something's not right. You can go check with the agent and actually reads the room with real data and says, hold on, we need to have a conversation around adoption because it looks like to me that they're kind of have a little bit of PTSD around the last effort. They don't want to go down the same path. So really, this agent is not necessarily just a data cruncher. It's not a synthesizer. It's really an interaction, kind of like Ethan Mollick's co-intelligence. You want the agent to work alongside you so that you almost work as if it's a coworker, constantly interacting with it. You're giving it more data, more intuition, and that only improves the results that we've been seeing.
Absolutely. And especially having a partner that kind of integrates that sort of AI with the company, I think really helps out people as a whole, because I think a lot of companies understand they need to integrate it, especially obviously in the local service-based business niche and industry and things like that, like roofing, HVAC contractors. They know they need to implement AI to a certain point, but they're not quite sure exactly how to do it. And then a more sophisticated company that's kind of more of like technology based knows they have to implement it as well, but it's on a different scale and they have to use it for different sort of customer reviews and things like that. So it's definitely kind of like as a whole, trying to figure out how to implement it and then utilize it to the best of your customer's ability.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you bring up contractors. That's one of our verticals that we focus on is construction manufacturing. One of the key things with these folks is, they're two of the lowest technology adopters, especially with the exponential rate that most of the organizations and markets actually adopt the technology. It's not really because of them. It's not a people problem. It's not necessarily even just they don't want to. The problem is that a lot of this risk they take on is the traditional methodology has always worked. And we don't want to discourage them of doing what is going to be right and what feels comfortable. What we do want to identify is there's opportunities to change in small segments rather than big change in terms of taking on an entire organization transformation. So with groups like that, one of the things that we've seen a trend of recently is let's start with this, right? Let's start with this little element. How big of an ROI can we get from it? And I'm not necessarily talking about like a money ROI. I'm talking about value they perceive in terms of day to day. So like a client recently we had that was struggling with the intake of certain projects. One of the things we noticed was they were doing a lot of manual takeoffs. And we just decided, what if the initial effort, and not necessarily the calculation, just more the extraction of the data from the actual documents that get sent over was enabled by an agent and then pushed into more of a workflow. That has already saved them over 3 hours a day. And that's an exponential savings and obviously not going to be the same for everybody. What they realized is there's more to be had. So that just opened up discussion to more of I guess you could say, more exposure to where they could actually improve. But at the same time, they're continuously coming to us and asking, well, what if, right? That's the kind of curiosity you need, especially with the changing technology and the ever-changing AI landscape. What if? And I think that curiosity is the first thing that clients absolutely have to find. It can't be we're a one and done. It never will work, especially in the past with SaaS. It never worked anyway. It's even worse now, right? If you just keep saying, oh, that agent's good, you're not going to go very far with that agent. Eventually, it's going to need an update. And you're going to have to figure out a way to implement it inside your organization.
And that was from a local service-based business. You said a contractor?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Super cool. Sweet. And as of right now, once again, what is the company website for the audience? And then what is your LinkedIn too?
Yeah. So we're at Eligio.ai. Easy to remember. Same name, same URL. My LinkedIn is Mike Buckiewicz, obviously in LinkedIn. One of the things that I really heavily focus on, and that's something that I truly believe in, is there is a way in which AI can coexist with humans. And one of the biggest things, like I said before, is we train the client around curiosity. I believe in the same thing. If you're not asking the right questions to what you're trying to do or even challenging it, all you're doing is letting AI take the reins. And honestly, it doesn't give enough to be able to understand exactly the direction you're headed. So if one message I'd like to make sure everybody's aware of is AI is not going to take over jobs. We're augmenting and we're changing the way we work. So we're working with AI to ensure that we transform in a way that is only going to make us better in terms of delivery, as well as checking our guts in terms of what I talked about before. So, the one of the things that I keep going back to, especially with my own transformation, and we've been through almost a 120-day transformation recently at Eligio.ai, where we've basically transformed the way we deliver with agents. And one of the things I learned, not just the hard way, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be, is there's so much more than just one step. Like it just kept building on itself. And every day I'm coming out with new agents, coming out with new ideas, and it's not scaring anybody now. We have a culture that basically accepts it and goes, oh, wow, yeah, that works. But they're coming from real life experiences, right? They're not like, oh, hey, go use this agent in generic stance. It's, hey, I have a very specific way in which you can use this. here's the guidance, and then the enablement sessions we do weekly to make sure that people are supported.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining us today here on RevTalks, Mike, sharing some of your expertise about the technology field and where AI is going as a whole. Hope you have a great rest of your day as well.
You too. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.